Hello everyone, and welcome back to Diablo 3, my hardcore run. Firstly, a bit of bad news. You might have noticed a huge break in between videos, and I'm only recording this one for now. Okay, just trying to make sure I actually had the game sound on, but it's just fairly quiet. I currently don't particularly feel like playing Diablo 3. So I'm afraid that means I don't want to force myself to produce content. That would be... I don't know. You would notice in the video quality that I don't really want to make the videos. And let me just check. Okay, increase the attack speed. A taunt. Okay, my panic button, shield bash. Okay, I haven't played in a while, so I have to go back to kind of getting used to which skills I have again. But yeah, this seems okay. Don't care about the lore. So, I'm just pausing this until I'm feeling like I want to play again, basically. And right now I just don't particularly. And I've tried in the past, when I was in this sort of mood, to record anyway, because I felt obliged to make videos, essentially. And it never turned out well. It always ended up being sort of, well, I don't really want to do this, man. Didn't make for good content, and because I want to make good content, I will pause this until I feel like it again. And in my experience, that might take a month or two, but I guess that's fine. Now I know last time, if I remember correctly, I ended up talking, or I stopped talking somewhere in the subject of neutron stars. At least that's what my notes imply. Someone's come online. Sorry about that, can't be helped. It's strange, I shouldn't be getting those messages when I'm set to Do Not Disturb, but I don't know. Careful with those poison flower things. I've seen more than one hardcore character die to those. Okay, there's going to be a plague nest over there, which I should go for. So anyway, neutron stars. So this is it's in a way the second class of stellar remnant that can occur when the star is too heavy to just go red giant and then slowly cool down, I guess. Well, red giant, then white dwarf. Have to put the piece of paper somewhere else. So, as I said, one of the factors which skills. Consecration. Consecrate the ground 20 yards around you for 10 seconds. You and your allies heal for 167 life per second while standing on this consecrated ground. Okay, so that's a nice little heal. And I have a new passive skill. Your primary skills generate more wrath. Okay. Nope, I'll stick to vigilant. So one of the factors that that maintains large stars is electron degeneracy pressure, which is basically produced by the fact that electrons can't occupy the same space if they have the same quantum numbers, so if they have the same spin. Okay, so the consecrated ground is not small, that's nice. And I wouldn't mind getting rid of the plague nest, because that'll spawn enemies indefinitely. No, silly little tree. I know it's not really a plant, but let's face it, it's a tree, even though they say it's kind of an animal. And that might be the lore perspective. It's a tree. I'm not really happy with the single target nature of this Justice ability. Anyway, so the star is so heavy that the electron degeneracy just can't be maintained. The gravity is stronger than that pressure, and that causes something called electron capture to occur, which basically means that the protons in the core of the elements capture an electron and combine into a neutron. And so the electron degeneracy pressure basically goes away because there are no more electrons. They merge with protons to form neutrons. And for these neutrons, there's also a similar kind of degeneracy pressure effect, except it's much stronger. I'd suspect because they're heavier than electrons, by what, 2,000 times heavier? So neutrons are much heavier, so that pressure, which occurs by them not being able to occupy the same space, it just becomes greater. And if that pressure is now large enough to make the star stable again, it's called a neutron star. It's just a very, very dense object. It tends to be an object 1 to 2 times as heavy as our Sun, compressed to what I think a diameter of 27 kilometers. So very, very dense, and very stable. They don't usually they don't evolve any further from that. They tend to be quite stable. See if I can put this. No, that's a bad idea. See, I have my notes here, but having them in such a position that I can read them very well, that's a different matter entirely. Let's try this. It's not ideal, but it might work. So because of a thing called the conservation of angular momentum, which basically means that in any system how much each particle is spinning, in a sense, that gets conserved. It's not quite that, but it's one of those conservation things which you have tons of in physics, that nothing ever gets produced or destroyed, it just gets converted into different forms, essentially. It's just like conservation of energy. And that means that neutron stars will usually spin, and sometimes spin quite rapidly. And also because of their nature, they are highly magnetized. And that's actually one of the ways we can detect them, because they are spinning rapidly and they sort of they have magnetic fields, and that produces radiation as they spin very quickly. And that was actually one of the first ways I think they were predicted, and then those pulses of radiation could be detected. And at first, astronomers actually thought those to be signs of intelligent life because they were very regular. The regularity of neutron star sort of radiation signatures, I guess, they are as regular as atomic clocks. So astronomers first thought that this was a sign of life because they didn't think any natural phenomenon could be so accurate and so precise that it would be as good as the best clocks that we have been able to build on Earth. So it took them a while to figure that one out, but obviously it's not a sign of intelligent life. It's just those neutron stars which are spinning at very precise speeds. Something like, some of them take a minute or two to rotate, and they're large objects. Some of them rotate once a second or so. Some even, I don't know, say 100 times a minute. Very, very quickly spinning and giving off signals quite rapidly. And I can't really read my notes while I'm having to do this fight here.
Make your peace quickly.
I really wouldn't mind having an AoE, but this worked out. Okay. Okay, and so, yeah. And these stars, if they are spinning and giving off these radiations, they are called pulsars because of them being pulsing stars. Because that's how we detect them, essentially. We see or we notice the continuing pulses of energy given off by them. And there's a kind of final option for stars, which occurs if the star is too heavy for even the neutron degeneracy pressure to be sufficient. And if even that isn't enough, if the star is so heavy that the neutrons are forced together closer than they should be able to, that's when you get a black hole, which is
I require more wrath.
I don't know. You know black holes from science fiction probably as sort of gigantic cosmic vacuum cleaners which suck up everything in their path and destroy and eat up galaxies and all that. That's not quite correct. A black hole is just a supermassive object which is smaller than its own Schwarzschild radius, and what that means is any object that has mass has one of those Schwarzschild radiuses. It's a German name, probably by some Jewish astronomer. So I'm pronouncing it a little weirdly because I'm kind of choosing the middle way between how non-German speakers would probably pronounce it and how the German pronunciation is. The quite correct pronunciation would be Schwarzschild, but that sounds weird putting it in an English sentence, so I'll probably go for something in between. Because I believe the English way is saying something like Schwarzschild, or whatever. Because they don't really know how to pronounce the SCH thing properly. Or they don't know how to pronounce it the German way, which is how the Jews pronounce their names. So basically this radius indicates that if the object of a certain mass was smaller than that radius, then it would be a black hole. And that radius is basically the distance from a point mass of that mass. So if the entire mass were concentrated into a single point, then if you're closer than its Schwarzschild radius to it, you could not get away from it. Even light cannot escape from an object closer than its Schwarzschild radius. Now usually objects are larger than their Schwarzschild radius, which means that you would have to be inside the object for light to be caught in its gravitational field, and that's obviously not possible. But for a black hole, that's not the case anymore. They are so dense, or rather they are so heavy, that they are smaller than that radius. So they are able to capture, well, even light. And nothing can escape from them. But if you're further away from them than I don't know, a few astronomical units, say, if you're far enough away from them, then it doesn't really make a difference if it's a black hole or a super heavy star. It's just a source of gravity. If you get too close, of course, it starts sucking you in, as any object does with a gravitational field. So a star is just as a black hole attracts all matter around it. The difference is just that if you get too close to that black hole, you go over its event horizon and you won't ever be able to come back. Whereas it's hypothetically thinkable if you had a super sturdy spacecraft that you could fly into a star and survive. Though of course it's not currently feasible with our technology, but it's imaginable that we could one day have a spacecraft made of sort of super resilient alloys that could survive the immense pressure and heat inside a star. And we could fly through a star and get out of it again because it's smaller than its own Schwarzschild radius.
Patience.
And for a black hole that doesn't work. But they're not any more destructive by themselves than a star already is. And well, let's face it, if you get too close to a star, you're toast as well. It's not like a star is a particularly... well, peaceful is the wrong word. It's also a very dangerous thing to be close to, just like a black hole. So, There is that, and there is something else to consider, which is that while the standard black holes form at the end of a star's life, there's different types of black holes, known as supermassive black holes, which are far, far more massive still than the ones left behind when a star dies. And they are,
An incredible feat.
what current research indicates, is at the center of each and every spiral galaxy, so including our own Milky Way. It is, at the current point of research, very likely that at the center of the Milky Way there's a supermassive black hole. The one at the center of the Milky Way is estimated to have 4.3 billion solar masses, so it's 4.3 billion times as heavy as our Sun. And essentially it's the gravity of that supermassive object which maintains the spiral form of our galaxy, which makes it look the way it does. See what we have here. Okay, just a silly letter. The thing about black holes, of course, is that they don't reflect anything. That's why they're called black holes. They are perfect black bodies. They absorb everything and reflect nothing, which is why you can't really directly observe them. Because to observe something visually, or using a radio telescope, using whatever really, you would need radiation to bounce off that object and fly back to you. That's how we see things. Light bounces off them and hits our eyes. And that doesn't work with a black hole, because nothing bounces back from it. Even light can't escape it. So once something hits the black hole, it stays there forever. It never leaves. So the only way we can determine if a black hole is somewhere is by looking at the effects that its gravitational field has. And that's how we were also able to determine that there's a supermassive black hole at the center of at least all of the galaxies that we've been able to observe sufficiently well. We have detected those supermassive black holes. Yeah, I guess that's really, I mean, the black hole sucking everything in thing is obviously, it's correct in a sense, because the black hole being a region of space-time where nothing can escape, it's quite possible that, what was I going to say, it's obviously any kind of matter that falls into the black hole will never escape. So they are, in a sense, those cosmic vacuum cleaners, but you still have to get close to them. So if it's a few light years away, you're probably fine for quite a while. And there's one thing that's quite interesting about the supermassive black holes, which is that because of how the size of a black hole is defined. It's obviously the Schwarzschild radius of that point mass, which is at its center, essentially. The heavier the black hole is, the bigger it gets, because the bigger the radius from which it's impossible to escape anymore. So, because that's considered the size of a black hole, a very large black hole is actually less dense than a small one. Just because of how size and mass scale with each other. It's a little complicated. I don't want to get into too much detail, but basically the heavier the black hole, the lower its density. And the supermassive black holes that we have at the centers of galaxy are actually less dense than water. Just that mass is actually concentrated on sort of a smaller space, I guess. It's difficult to explain, but it's quite interesting that they're not actually that dense by themselves. They're just very, very large. Yeah, there's one more phenomenon I wanted to talk about, and that's fairly old black holes, essentially. Some of the oldest objects we know in the universe. These are black holes at the centers of old galaxies, and as I said, a black hole, it does obviously attract matter because it's a huge source of gravity. And so the matter that falls into the black hole, once it's beyond its event horizon, it no longer, it basically becomes part of the black hole and nothing ever escapes. So we don't know anything about the matter. But the matter close to it, which is currently in the process of falling into it, essentially, it might still give off radiation. And if it's not closer than its event horizon, then that radiation will actually be able to escape. And if there's enough matter currently being accreted by that black hole, it'll have something called an accretion disk around it, which is the matter that's currently being absorbed by it, falling in. There's a lot of matter basically being sucked in, and all that matter interacts with all the other matter that's currently being sucked in, and produces light. I'll take this pool of reflection. Because of friction, basically. Lots of stuff being sucked in and friction occurs, it heats up, producing light. And this is what's known as a quasar. And quasars are the brightest objects we know in the universe. They are caused by these accretion disks on supermassive black holes. And quasars are brighter than entire galaxies, and unlike a supernova, which is also very, very bright, go away. Quasars are, I guess, more stable. They last for longer. Now, the only quasars we know are fairly old, because they're fairly far away, so
Blessings of the light.
that's all we currently know, but they are super bright objects. I have some new stuff that I want to look at quickly. But yeah, as I said, mostly this is supposed to be a video, but trying to finish off with that stellar evolution stuff, and also then telling you that it'll be a break for a while from Diablo 3. Again, as I said, I might continue, say, over Christmas or something. Don't despair yet. It's not like I'm ending this series, but giving it a break anyway. I have Punish with the Celerity rune when you block. With the Hardened Senses, I gain increased attack speed. That's nice. And I have Laws of Justice, which actively gives me 119 resistance to all elements, and passively gives me 34 resistance to all elements. That's quite a lot, actually. It's not bad. Let me just see if I have any... Nope, that's about it, about the Stellar Evolution stuff. So, yeah, I guess if you want to see more of this, let me know. That might be motivation enough. And aside from that, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.